Kabir the Weaver of God's Name teachings continued. Wow, so beautiful. Canvas of stone. It is an inherent urge in man to search for God and meet Him. It is a natural pull of soul towards its source, the Lord. But not knowing where and how to find Him, people try to see God in idols. The scriptures, places of pilgrimage, and holy rivers or pools, and mountains, caves, in the temples, mosques. They adopt various means to attain Him. They resort to worship of stones and other man-made symbols. They renounce the world and retire to forests, put on the various garbs they take to fast and other forms of self-mortification. They tell beads and recite and read the holy scriptures, give alms and perform deeds of charity. They undertake the oblations, adopt celibacy, and resort to numerous forms of external worship. Doing all this, men feel happy and satisfied that they are pleasing the Lord, that they are only deluding themselves. Undertaking all these practices, they think that they have attained spiritual heights. They boast of their so-called spirituality and seek to guide and teach others. Themselves deluded, they also delude others. According to Dhatu, they are in a like of drug addict intoxicated with the hemp and heroin, who, though in his purses, empty, claims that he is the treasurer of the kings. In spite of their elation, true spirituality eludes them. Kabir, as mentioned earlier, strongly rejected all external observances and the worship and had to pay the practice for asserting the truth by suffering persecution at the hand of the priestly class. Shami Tabriz, Mansure Halaj, and the Samit among the Persian mystics, and the Namdev, Kabir, Ravidas, Guru Nanak, Guru Arjan Dev, Guru Hargobind, Guru Tegh Bahadur Singh, Guru Gobind Singh, Dadu, Mira, Paltu, and other among the Indian saints had to suffer insult, persecution, and torture, and even death for their outspoken condemnation of rituals and formal practices. Idol worship is one of the most common forms of devotion prevalent in almost every religion in the world, whether it is the worship of a statue, or a painting, a symbol or monument, a grave, or that of the sandals, clothes, and the furniture of the holy person who is no more in the world. The all forms of the idol worship say that God, the Supreme Spirit, the ocean of ultimate consciousness, and the source of all sentience, can neither be enclosed in an idol nor represented by any material symbol. Rajab, the 17th century saint, says, man, the sentient being, makes a god out of the inert matter and thoughtlessly worships and serves it. Even this much does not dawn on him, that can dead stone be turned into God. Man adores the hand crafted. He pays homage to what he buys from the market. Alas, the Rajab, man is unaware of the one who cannot be fabricated, whose value cannot be ascertained. All types of external observances involve the devotee to outward pursuits and adoration of the dead matter, whereas the path to a true realization is an inward journey. The true worship is the adoration of the God or the Master who has emerged into him. Kabir says, all beings I see them as idols of God, but the saints in the living God himself. I have no concern with stones. Love and devotion is the ship and the Master is captain. When you realize this vast ocean will become as tiny for you as the water-filled hoof prints of a cow. Wow. Worship of the Master Stone is regarded by sense as the lowest form of devotion. Love of matter or things fashioned from matter will always keep the soul tied to the material world. Kabir says that if the worshipping a stone god could be made, then he would have gladly adored the mountain. In a matter cannot be reciprocate the devotee's love. It cannot lead his soul inside nor guide it through the intricate phases of the spiritual journey. Kabir says that the worship of the idols and the holy waters will all go to waste and bear no fruit. A devotee may worship stones all his life, he will never obtain an answer to his prayers. An ignorant man whose vain hopes for a response will only lose his spiritual luster. Of stone is the temple, of stone is the deity, only the deluded and the blind adore them. Kabir says that such people are trying to cross the ocean in the canoes of stone. Their devotion is misplaced as it is the frail as a paper boat, and they burden it with a heavy load of the idol worship and rituals. Says Kabir, they are sure to sink into the world's deadly sea. Dadu has almost the same thing to say. If a crystal piece is carved into the shape of the sun, it will not remove darkness. Darkness will be dispelled only when the real sun rises. If a wife installs an idol of her husband who has gone abroad, it will not respond to her love. In the same way, the idol of the god cannot serve the object of the devotee. Guru Nanak says, blind and dumb men dwell in the darkness. They worship a stone which is also inert and sightless. The stones themselves saying, how can they ferry you across? Saint Paltu denounces both Muslims and the Hindus for their external worship. The former run to Kaaba, the latter to Puri. The Muslims run to the west and the Hindus to the east. Both are foes. They are groping in the heaps of ash. One bows to tombs, the other to stones. Both water in delusion and vex their hands. Idol worship is also strongly denounced in the Bible. Ye shall make you no idols nor graven image. Neither rear you up a standing image, neither shall ye set up any image of the stone in your land to bow down up unto it. For I am the Lord your God, whom wheresoever go ye ignorantly worship him, declare I unto you. God had made the world and all things therein, seeing that he is the Lord of heaven and earth, dwelt not in the temples made with hands. The Bible describes how a craftsman fashions an idol out of the wood, and in order to put it against the wall, it fastens it with a nail and puts it on the wall, fastening it with its nail. Thus, lest it fall down, he provides for it, knowing that it cannot help itself. For truly it is an image and needs help. Visits to places of pilgrimages and baths and rivers and pools considered to be holy are equally fruitless. No amount of bathing and washing in them can remove the dross of the karmas and evil tendency accumulated over the mind. In the words of the Kabir, what use is it to scrub the body with the dirt is within? The bitter god may bath in all the 68 holy spots, but its bitterness will not depart. Wagner, a 17th century mystic, also says, you may wash in 68 waters, you may bath at all the 68 holy places, yet Vankana, the stink of the mind, the fish will not go. Guru Nanak expresses the same ideas thus. Man goes to bath at the holy places with the evil mind in the body, harboring a thief, the passions, while one part, the physical body is bad, the other part, the mind acquires more filth. The bitter god, washed from the outside, still has nothing but bitterness within. The scent is pure within such ablutions, while the thief after bathing is still a thief. A priestly class propagate countless ritualistic practices of their own selfish ends. Commentaries on scriptures and holy lore advanced by the Pandits and the priests keep men involved in a variety of formalities. Kabir describes such books as dungeons of ignorance and delusion. The formalities taught by the priests such as door leading into the cells of darkness, and the priestly class as robbers who, having obstructed the truth from the boldest idols, rob the innocent travelers. The Pandits have made a cell out of the soot, and from the sink of rituals its dismal doors. They have planted stones in the earth and lie in ambush to rob the world. Dadu is equally forthright in his views about scriptures when he asks, how can men earn release from the help of a paper and ink? Without the Lord's name, says Dadu, the bane of delusion cannot be dispelled. Dadu has studied and searched for him in Vedas and Quran, but the land where one can meet the pure one is far from the reach. Saints repeatedly tell us that the path to God lies within the human body, and all efforts to find him outside are futile. Although they are kind and tolerant in their dealings with everybody, they are uncompromising in the matter of outward practices. Saint's mission is to awaken men to the inner reality, not to acquiescence in their delusions. His denunciation is aimed not at any person, but at the organized system, at an unorthodox custom and convention, and at those who profit by keeping seekers deluded in them. In the words of the Kabir, without true devotion, the entire world is blinded by the hairs of delusion, and Yama hovers over their head, ready to hurl the deadly net. The Hindus will kill themselves adoring idols and worshipping many deities. The Muslims undertaking holy journeys, yogis, die raising and tending tufts of matted hair all their lives. None of them ever finds the Lord. Poet pass away weaving mythology in person recluses and hermits in visiting all the holy places. Fasting ascetics waste their life in acts of self-mortification, plucking out their hair. But none of them ever finds the Lord. The Pandits die reading and reciting scriptures, but they who know the real method of spiritual practice and devotion search for God within their own bodies, says Kabir the Weaver. They will surely meet the Lord. Equally emphatic is Guru Nanak's rejection of such external observations. Talking about Pandits and Orthodox ritualists, he says, they read holy books, perform rituals, prayers at dawn and sunset, and engage in religious debates. They worship stones and pretend to deep meditation like the stork that stands motionless on one leg watching for fish. In their mouth is a falsehood. They project their spurious as genuine, and they recite the 3 lines mantra 3 times a day. They wear rosaries around their neck and the sacred mark on their forehead, a loincloth round their waist, and cloth wrapped around their head. If they knew the acts that please the Lord, they would have realized that their rituals are acts of bogus piety. Says Nanak, dwell upon the true one, but without the Satguru, they know not the way. Swamiji also describes these external forms of worship and rituals as bogus piety and indulging in them as churning water instead of milk. Kabir calls these practices counterfeit and says that the butter cannot be obtained from the water. Guru Arjan expresses the same idea. The true Reddy is within the house, the body. But when men fell to see him, they hang stones around their necks. Such wicked and worldly men wandered in delusion. They churned water and waste their efforts. Saint Ravidas says, what use repeating Krishna, Karim, Rahim, Ram, Rahim, Raghav? If you have not realized the one Vedas, scriptures, Quran and Puranas, not one of them has known the stage of Sahaj. The manifold forms of the worship that men resort to and counterfeit, the truth is obtained only through the practice of Sahaj, says Ravidas. I worship him who belongs to no place and who has no name. Living in the city of Benares for centuries, the stronghold of the ritualism, Kabir has seen the hollowness of the forms of worship propagated by the priestly class. He knew that they were exploiting the credulous people by deluding them into undertaking a variety of rituals and ceremonies. The gainers from these practices were always the priests and pandits who controlled the temples and religious institutions and presided over the ceremonies. Kabir and no hesitation in denouncing them. Delicacies, sweet and salty, are offered in abundance to the idols by the devotees. But after the worship, the priests walk away with the offerings, throwing dust on the deity's dry face. Not one, not two, the entire world is deluded by them. One who is not deluded is Kabir, the slave who has taken the lost shelter, diving for jewels. Since ruthless criticism of formalism is not without a purpose, their approach is always constructive. If they try to shake us from traditional ways of worship, it is because they want to inculcate the true way of devotion in the seeker's heart. If they are inculcastic, it is because they want men to turn from outer symbols of God to the reality within. They denounce man-made temples and mosques because they know that the true house of the God is the human body. If they ask men to give up the pennies of outer rituals, they offer them the real goal of the inner realization. But in the world of the Kabir, men keep roaming on the shores and picking up the empty shells. They do not dive into the sea where priceless jewels await them. The treasure sense offer is God realization. The way to dive into the inner ocean of the divine bliss is the spiritual practice, which step by step takes the devotee back to his destination. Initiate seeker into a technique of meditation which consists of simran or repetition, dhyan or contemplation, and bhajan or listening to the melody of shabd. Controlling the mind or making it still is the prerequisite for withdrawing the consciousness from the 9 portals of the body to the eye center. The sense method of spiritual practice is based on the nature of the mind. They know that the mind has 3 basic threads that stand in the way of the soul's inward journey. The first is its habit of constantly remembering and thinking about the world and its objects. ever on the move. Even during sleep, it is not at rest and is dreaming about the endless objects it exists. The second basic trait of the mind closely allied to its tendency to keep thinking about different worldly objects. Mind-seeking habit is so intense that it visualizes the objects and faces its dwell on. Every thought of the mind is accompanied by its mental picture, and no mental picture is without a thought. A third characteristic of the mind is that it craves pleasure. Its innate urge for pleasure keeps it brooding over them and seeking opportunities to gratify them. Since explained that physical limitation of the body are no barrier to the mind's flights. Restrictions placed on the body cannot restrict the mind from thinking about and visualizing material things, and physical denial of the pleasures does not preclude the mind from the dwelling on them. When a diver dives on pearls, he has to plunge deep into the sea. He cannot keep a part of his body on dry land. In the same way, all the three qualities of the mind have to be turned inward if the mind is to withdraw from the body and to come to the eye center. To control the mind habit of constantly running outside and thinking about the world and its objects, and prescribe the technique of repetition as the substitute for the habit of visualizing material things. They give the method of contemplation, and in its place the worldly pleasures. They provide the mind with the ineffable joy of the divine melody, before which all other pleasures fade into insignificance. Simran, repetition. Simran, as taught by the saints, is not an oral repetition. It has to be done by the mind and not by the tongue, not for the help of beads, rosaries, prayer wheels, or any such external devices. Kabir gives many examples of to explain that Simran should be done by the mind. With full attention and concentration, the mind should be so attuned to Simran that it goes on automatically, even while the devotee is engaged in fulfilling his worldly obligations. The cow goes to the pasture for grazing, but his attention is constantly with the newborn calf left behind. The miser thinks always of its wealth. The lustful dwell on the objects of their lust. So should the devotee keep his attention in Simran. Only through such intense Simran, without the doors be closed, that is, the mind will retract from the physical body and the inner spiritual door will be open. The Persian mystics have laid great stress on repetition, and like the Indian saints, insists that it should be done by the mind, not by the tongue. Rumi says that the repetition of the lost name has to be done without the tongue and the palate. Such repetition brings the soul to the eye center, opens the 10th door, and reveals the beauty and splendor of the inner realms. Again, he says, that repetition is correct, which opens the inner path, and that is right, on which the banker is met. And the true banker is he who is not rich by virtue of money and jewels, but who is rich within himself. Saint Ravidas says that when the devotee repeats the Lord's name and dwells in it for duality, he will merge into the non-duality. Guru Arjan Dev has composed many hymns to praise the Simran. He says, he who lives absorbed in Simran for even a moment lives eternally in bliss. In other words, absorption in Simran will lead the devotee into the inner worlds of the everlasting bliss, and he will not be required to come back to the circle of birth and death. Guru Tegh Bahadur says, who knows? Know him as liberated as in whose heart dwells Simran. Between him and the God there is no difference. O Nanak, know this to be true. Repetition is the first step in the spiritual discipline of the devotee initiated by a perfect master. When the practice is complete, that is, when the disciple attains the perfection of repetition, then the process becomes automatic and involuntary rather than a deliberate exercise. The devotee's mind then gives up its habit of wandering outside, becomes its begin to relish Simran, its attention turns inward, and it becomes fit to experience the inner spiritual bliss. In a long poem in praise of Simran, Kabir says that Simran leads the devotee to the door of salvation, turning his attention from the physical world to the inner realms. The devotee who attains proficiency in repetition becomes free from the load that keeps us bound to the world and releases him from the chain of coming and going. Guru Nanak says, the Lord's name is divine food. Absorb it to your heart's content. Obtain all the boons through Simran. It is the real profit. Guru Gobind Singh also presses the benefits of Simran. Those who practice the name with full concentration, even for a moment, never return to the snare of Kal. The agents of Kal, the negative power, often assail the devotee in the inner regions. They try to frighten him, tempt him, mislead and deceive him by the various means, but sense say that the moment the devotee repeats the names, all the forces of the negative power take flight. In the poem about the inner worlds, Kabir refers to these forces. They adopt evil forms, create frightening spectacles, and harrowing noises. The minions of Dharmaprai call about and try to intimidate the devotee, but they all take to their heels the moment the names given the perfect master are repeated. Guru Arjan Dev also says that no obstacles bother the devotee who repeats the name. Hearing the name, Yama turns, runs away to a distance by repeating the Lord's name. No evil eye can assail the devotee. By repeating the Lord's name, neither the demons nor deities can approach him. Praising the power of Simran, Kabir declares, even the 7 islands and the 9 worlds, such is the power of my Naam, that Yama and all evil forces shudder in fear, and my victory's drum resounds in the entire Brahman. But all sense emphasize that Simran must be obtained from a perfect master. Simran given by family priests and pandits and the monks will be of no use spiritually. The words to be repeated and the exact technique of repetition are given to the disciple at the time of initiation by the perfect master. Coming from a spiritual adept, the names are not ordinary words but are charged with the master's spiritual power. These words may be available in books but not in the spiritual energy of the master, which alone gives them their force. Kabir says, repeat in your mind the Lord's name, obtain the Simran from a true master. An arrow needs the propelling force of the bow to travel a long distance and hit the target. The bullet cannot hit the mark unless it passes through the barrel of gun. In the same way, Naam must come through the medium of a Satguru. The treasure of Simran can only be obtained from a spiritual adept. Guru Arjan Dev says that the Satguru blesses the disciple with the wealth of Naam, the disciple of perfect master, indeed fortunate. And again, the master's word abides in the soul. It is indestructible. Water cannot drown it. Thieves cannot steal it. Fire cannot consume it. Christ refers to the treasure of meditation in similar terms when he says, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal. Guru Arjan Dev enjoins upon the disciple to sacrifice his entire being at the feet of the master who has given the method of repetition, but ever a sacrifice to that master by whom you have been blessed with the Simran of the God's name. The master's personal spiritual power imbues the words of the Simran with the dynamic force. They pull the soul upwards, protect the devotee against the pitfalls, and endorse him with great powers of the will and concentration. Words taken from holy books or from the source other than the perfect master are ineffective and inert. Saint Daria of Marwa says, the true words given by the true Guru and the long tusk of the mighty elephant are alike. The latter break open the gates of the fort, the former shatter the bellies of the million karmas, but the tusk without the elephant, O Daria, cannot break the gates. They can only make bangles for delicate wrists and toys for children. Kabir repeatedly tries to impress upon the seeker the importance of initiation by the perfect master into the method of Simran. Only that name is true. Only that name is your own, which the master bestows upon you. All other names are false. Why run after them? Dhyan, contemplation. When the devotee with the aid of the Simran vacates the physical body and comes to the eye center, his attention slips down again and again, for it finds no object to hold it at the focus. To enable the attention to stay within sense, give the technique of contemplation. Dhyan or contemplation turns the mind's attention from the world and its object to the divine form to be taught to contemplate upon. Mind is in the habit of constantly forming images. It is never blank. The screen of the mind is never without one picture or another. Since utilize the mind's habit of thinking by applying it to the repetition, they utilize this habit of visualizing by applying it to the inner contemplation. Almost all religions enjoin on their devotees to contemplate on some ideal picture or symbol of their deity. Such external contemplation of material objects becomes a chain binding the devotee to the object contemplated upon. In fact, it is thus that the mind creates bonds with the physical body by contemplating or dwelling constantly on the objects of the world. Birth after birth, these links become stronger and keep the mind and soul captive within the confines of matter. Contemplation of inner matter, whether it be the idol of the great prophet or saint, or the temple of the powerful deity, or a symbolic representation of a popular spiritual teacher, will not liberate the seeker from the shackles of birth and death. Kabir says that whoever Once attachment are there, he will go. Through mind, speech, and actions, whatever a man dwells on, after death there will be his abode be. Contemplation on the trees, reptiles, birds, and animals will take the soul to the level of those beings, all inferior to man. Man is the top of the creation, a perfect combination of all the five elements that form the basis of life in his creation. Other trees is not fully endowed with the five elements and devoid of the five inequalities of man, such as discrimination, understanding, and analysis, are much lower on the ladder of life. Attachment to them will pull the soul down to their level. Kabir says that having obtained the precious human birth, man should utilize it in the form of devotion which will enable him to escape from the vicious circles of birth and death. Adopt such a master that a master again you do not need to seek. Dwell in such a state that a dwelling again you do not have to make. Undertake such a contemplation that contemplation again you do not have to undertake. He advises the seeker to adopt, nor is it a external practice. Saints do not ask their disciples to undertake any type of outward contemplation, and then in the speaking of the inner contemplation says, I do not store my wealth in treasure chests, nor bury it in the earth, nor do I keep it tied securely in my scarf. I hold that wealth in morning and evening, day and night, behind my eyes, softly veiled by the eyelids. This wealth journey found through the grace of his Sadguru. When the devotee has not seen the Lord, the man-made idols and the lowest pieces of the life are unfit for his contemplation, on whom should be he contemplate. Mystics prescribe contemplation on the form of the perfect master. The true master is one who has realized God and become one with him. In other words of Kabir, seeing such a master as seeing the Lord himself. The Christ also says, he that has seen me has seen thy Father. The Sadguru's physical form is all on the level of man, but within the soul is one with the Supreme Being. To contemplate on him is to contemplate on God. Kabir says the sense physical form is the mirror of the formless one. If you long to see the invisible, see him in the sense. Guru Arjan says the sense are the form of the eternal being. It is a proper object to contemplate upon. By pleasing the Sadguru, I attain bliss. By contemplating on him, I attain by all boons. Persian mystics have also advocated the contemplation on the master's form. Hafiz describes the devotee's experiences when contemplation becomes perfect, when the master's form was fixed in my heart. The account of the beginning and the end was revealed to me, O beloved. When a meditation I fixed your form within, then the arch resounded with your call. Swamiji repeatedly tells the devotee, contemplate on the form of the master, for without this practice, you cannot obtain release from the ocean of the phenomena. Contemplate on the form of your master in the heart, eye center, and every moment repeat his name. The only boon that a true seeker desires in God realization and contemplation is an important step to it. Guru Nanak says that one who enshrines the form of the Sadguru in his heart obtains whatever boons he longs for. Guru Amar Das is also praised for those who contemplate on the form of a perfect master. If I should get the dust of the feet of those who contemplate on a perfect master, I will apply it to my forehead. True worship of the Lord is the practice of the Naam given by the Master. True contemplation is that of the Master's form, and the devotion to the Master is the true devotion to the Lord. Kabir says the prime dhyan, the essence of the true contemplation is that of the Master's form. Real worship is the worship of the Holy Feet. True name is that which the Master gives. True love is the ultimate truth. Bhajans, listening to the sound. The third aspect of the spiritual practice prescribed by the senses of bhajan, or listening to the melody of the shabd, when the mind and the soul are withdrawn to the eye center with the help of the repetition and held there. With the aid of contemplation, the devotees come in contact with shabd. The divine melody of the word in the shabd is constantly resounding at the eye center of every human being, but one is not aware of this presence until one arrives at this point when the devotee reaches the door behind the he hears the shabd in this enchanting melody and is gradually absorbed in it. Once he comes in direct contact with the sound current, it draws him towards itself and takes him upwards into the higher spiritual regions and ultimately to his real home. Although this melody is its full force and splendor can be experienced only on going within, the sense teach the method of listening to it. Even while the devotee is within the 9 portals of the body, the perfect master connects the disciple's soul to the Shabd at the time of initiation, and after a little practice, the disciple starts hearing the Shabd during the periods of his meditation. The perfect master is an adept in the spiritual practice, having himself become one with the power of the Supreme Being, the all-pervading and all-sustaining Shabd merged in Shabd. The master is the personification of the Shabd. He is the manifestation of the ultimate power of the physical level. He alone has the competence and the power to put others on the path of the realization of Shabd. The threshold technique of repetition, contemplation, and listening to the sound current is taught to the seeker at the time of initiation. Initiation by the perfect master is thus the first step on the spiritual path. Saints say that the master is the gateway to salvation. The master himself is the path to God. Saint Rajab says that without the guru, one cannot reach the destination, one cannot even know about it. Without the path, the master, how can the traveler even stop into the foreign land? Guru Arjan Dev says, without initiation from the master, how can one acquire true knowledge? Without seeing, how can one contemplate? Kabir says that he realized the truth only when the master showed him the path. Within the body he found the odious route, and through the odious route his destination. Through instructions given by the master, the difficult who becomes easy, the inaccessible inner regions attainable, and the spiritual bliss. The dream of yogis, ascetics, and pandits a reality. Kabir says the Sadguru took mercy on me and he blessed me with the eternal word. Its shade is cool, its fruit easy to assess. The swan soul now revels in waves of bliss. I will not leave the practice of the true name which the master has taught. Through it I have touched the imperishable one, and I too have become imperishable. Guru Arjan Dev says in his acrostic, O mind, take the shelter of a sin, discard your cleverness, your crafty ways. He is whose mind dwelt the master's instruction is the truly fortunate one. Saint Bikar praises the master's gift of initiation. My master has given me the arms of sound and light, which I see and hear without eyes and ears. The object of meditation is to merge the soul into Shabd. The success is the spiritual practice prescribed by the perfect master leads to the soul of God realization. Kabir describes the outcome of the successful meditation thus: when the body is motionless and the mind is still, and the Surat and Nirat are still too. O Kabir, the glory of such a moment, not a billion years of happiness in the heavens can equal. The crowning point of the meditation is the 10th vein, the conscious repetition of names, the involuntary repetition of the mind, and even the unstruck mistake cease to exist. For the soul merged in the Shabd itself becomes Shabd, the drop becomes the ocean. The Kabir continues, the repeated will die. The unprepared will die, even the unstruck will be no more. The soul will merge into Shabd and transcend the bonds of Kal. The practice of Shabd or Nam purifies the mind and turns it inwards. Meditation removes all obstacles in the disciple's inner journey and destroys the store of karmas, which bring the soul to the world again and again. Kabir says that the effects of the million sins are wiped out by practicing the Nam that the Sadguru gives. Faith and absorption in the true name dispel all delusions and eliminate all karmas, and the master fulfills the devotee's desire, for the devotee gives up all hopes in the world, alive with hope as one sows. In the physical, astral, and the causal worlds, nothing can happen without a cause. In the region of the mind and the Maya, every action has a motive force or cause behind it, and in turn, every action becomes a cause of further effects. This sequence of cause and effect, which keeps the soul confined within the perimeter of the world of mind and matter, is known as the law of karma. The chain of cause and effect is long, complex, and almost impossible to trace. For example, air travel is possible today because of a number of factors leading to the invention of the first airplane at the beginning of the century. This in turn was the result of the discoveries leading to the utilization of power, and prior to that, about 200 years ago, a day a scientist observed the lid of his kettle jumping to the force of stream, and the chain of cause leading to this can take us back to the day man first learned to use fire. If one traces the chain of cause and effect, it will be found to be endless, almost eternal. From the moment the creation, the law of cause and effect has been a dominant and driving force. In the scheme of creation, according to the laws of karma, a soul's birth is in the world, the environment in which it is born, the happiness and suffering that undergoes here are all the result of such earlier cause. And although it is impossible to solve the riddle whether the seed came first or the tree, there is no disputing the fact that there can be no seed without a tree, nor any tree without a seed. There is not an event or action in life without a cause, and every action in turn becomes a cause of some future effect. Kabir says, as are one's actions, so will be the life of lives he lives. Guru Nanak confirms it, saying, as one sows, so does he reap. As one earns, so does he ease. Again, as one does, so does he receive. What a man himself sows, he himself has to eat. Kabir says that such is the law of the creation, that whatever one puts into the kettle, the same will pour out of these pot. Guru Arjan Dev describes the world as a field of the karmas and actions. In the well-known hymn of the 12th month of the year, he declares that what one sows, that he reaps. According to his actions, a man's fate is determined, and he undergoes that which is written on his forehead. Almost the same terminology